Hello and welcome to another fighting fantasy related video. Today we're going to be looking at House of Hell, the Japanese manga version. So to recap what that is, fighting fantasy is a series produced in the UK by Puffin in the 80s and 90s. And they stopped publishing in mid-90s, and they also had worldwide releases. They had releases in Japan, and they had the same art and stuff inside. But then later in the 2000s, Wizard Books over here re-released the books, many of the books, well, at least half ish. And over in Japan, well, a bit later on, a release from Bunko, or I think it's actually called Hobby Japan, I've realised, released the three of the books, being Deathtrap Dungeon, House of Hell and Sword of the Samurai, but with manga art. And the company is quite famous for sort of slightly more risque sort of anime style, manga style art for their pieces. And yeah, we're going to be having a look at it anyway. So Deathtrap Dungeon is the most infamous for the sort of Tyrus Flare bikini style, but we had a look at that already, so I'll leave a link in the description for that if you want to have a look at that one in detail. But this is the Japanese Bunko House of Hell. In this one, this is you. We are playing a schoolgirl, which is a fairly typical anime manga trait. And unlike Deathtrap Dungeon, where the insides weren't as rude as the cover appeared to promise, this one has a few risque moments, so content warning for that. There's some slight, almost nudity, if you can call it that, but not much. I mean, barely anything, but just a warning that that is coming up. And of course, if you know the British or the original series, this is the original cover, House of Hell. So let's have a look at the inside. So as before, I want to compare the illustrations and review in general. They're all the same sort of feeling, nice and small and concise, feel really nice to handle. Some lovely colour plates here and there, and I think I will go through the plates again at the end, the same as last time, but there they are. There's, if we can see that without reflections, there's some colour plates at the front which are really nice. They sent us this as well, so that's cool. And yeah, it's all in Japanese, reading right to left, which is the norm mostly, although things can change and have changed in modern times. And I can't read a word of Japanese, but I'm assured that all the writing is exactly the same as the original English release. So yeah, let's see if we can go through this book and see what it's all about. So, rather handily, the paragraphs have brackets next to them when there's a illustration associated with them, which made it much easier to figure out which illustration was being changed out for what. So here are the Great Danes from the book. If you know House of Hell, you will know what this is about. And of course, you. In all three of these Japanese books, we get to see you, and you are of course a Japanese female. But apart from that, there's no gender swaps in this one, and there weren't that many gender swaps in the previous one when you even though it's kind of infamous. There are only a couple. So yeah, so let's have a look at both illustrations. Over here, this is our Great Danes, and here we have you, and you have a knife out against the Great Danes, which is cool. And there's a slight panty shot there. That's one of the, I'd say about 3 or 4 slightly more risque choices from the manga perspective. Yeah, but I won't be making any judgment on that. Pretty sure on this one already. Yeah, next page. So here we have the torturers that tie you down. Now this is a brand new illustration. There's no comparison in the original. And of course it's a good excuse clearly to have you chained down, but there's nothing so much read on this one. But yeah, that's where the torturers tie down in the book, and they ask you some questions and you have to convince them that you are a friend of the Earl. So let's try and flip through it faster. So next up we have paragraph 41, and we've got 2 skeletons and of course you. And now this is one of the risque moments for some reason. Just pulled up the top a little bit and grabbing you, but yeah, this is it, and we have a comparison for that in the original. So of course you don't appear in the original. There you go, and that's the moment where they jump out the cupboard, I think fairly early on in the book. And so yeah, I'm assuming you know or don't mind knowing about these bits. Yeah, that's that. Next one we have is 85. So that, yeah. Okay, so these are the fire sprites. Their pose is pretty much the same, I think, to that from the original. So we can find that. Yeah, pretty much similar poses. These guys just have kind of smooth skin, like, rather than more sort of flamey look. Yeah, and that's what that is. So next we have 126. So let's flick straight to there. 126, and here we have the ghoul in the pantry. So if you know this book well, you'll probably know what's coming up when you hear the paragraph. But yeah, this is the infamous kitchen, and there's kind of a comic book panel feel going on here, but not quite. We've got some proper comic book panels in Deathtrap Dungeon, but in this one unfortunately we didn't. So look side by side. Yeah, we get to see a bit more of the pantry in the original, but we get you in the bottom here, which is cool. Next up is 139. Let's get there. 139 is at the sort of garden bedroom with the old lady in bed, and of course we've got you, which we don't get in the original. So let's look over here. We have a different angle in the original. Your perspective coming from the left, comes to the bed from the left. And yeah, trying to remember to pull out to show you both at once. Yeah, so next up is it's 154. And here we have, so this is the white-haired man, or the grey road man, who attacks you, and without spoilers, yeah, that's it. You get some choices for that. Oh yeah, so a bit more messed up in that one. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, yes, again you're in that one, being grabbed. And yeah. So next 181. 181, and now we have. So this is the Hell Demon, and the Hell Demon is pretty famous. I think it made it into Out of the Pit. So we'll just go to that here. And yeah, there it is in its much better, I think, original glory in this case. But this is still probably better than the Scholastic modern version. But yeah, so 196 next stop. I've probably missed it already. Not today. Okay, so 196 is a brand new illustration. There's no comparison, and let's have a look, see if you can tell where this is. So yep, you're eating there, so this is actually near the beginning, and this is the paragraph if you chose to eat the lamb. This is you eating lamb with a happy face. Pretty cool. That's you eating with the Earl at the beginning. So next stop 209. Okay, so this one's pretty similar to the book, I think, the original. Except that you've got you at the back of your head there, and you've got this funny little curl in your hair. It's a pretty common anime hairstyle. We have a look at 209 in here. Yeah, pretty close shot. Moving on, 222. Okay, so this is the goat-headed guy when you try to leave through the front door, and I think there's another one where the original is probably more famous, and you didn't want it replaced really. Let's have a look at it anyway, comparison. So yeah, that's the original goat-headed guy. Side by side. Moving on. Next come up is 250. So let's look up for 250. Okay, so this is the painting of the old lady. So very easily, that's good. Here we are. Painting of the old lady. She's looking a little bit not as wrinkly in this one, but that's sort of classic sort of old lady look, I guess, from manga. Still got the roses in there. Cool. Next up is 254. So it's not far away. Here it is. Okay, so this is an extra one, and I think this is the last extra one that we get, the third of the sort of exclusive illustrations, and this is again you in chains, similar to Deathtrap Dungeon, where we had one with you in chains. And what was this? 254. And you will notice again, 254 has no end paragraph, no go to. So that's probably because it's the end paragraph. So let's check it out. 254. Let's just leave it to compare. So what we've got here. Your fears are confirmed when the door opens. The noise has attracted the attention of some mysterious friends of the Earl Dreamer. 4 men enter the room, all dressed in white gowns and wearing goats' heads to conceal their faces. They are armed with knives and lengths of wood. It would be foolish to resist them. Grabbing your wrists, they take you downstairs into the cellar. There you enter a room in which there are 4 prison cells. 3 are already occupied, but the 4th is empty. You will be detained here at the Earl's pleasure. Your adventure has ended. So yeah, this is you in the 4th cell. That same cell that we saw earlier, actually, in which the district nurse was in there as well, who's a bit more famous for 264, which is coming up next. So 264 is the one that's going to contain slight nudity. If you know this book well, we might as well see the original first and talk about that. So in 264, this version does have that illustration, but it was actually removed from later versions of the original English version, so it's already quite infamous. The district nurse being sacrificed by the coat-headed man there. So this one is already well known and is removed from later copies of the book, and then I think it might return in the fab versions, but it's ultimately gone. So let's have a look at this version. Side by side first. So we've got one goat-headed man, and we have the district nurse, but there's no attempt to cover this time. Quite often censored anime and manga will just go for a sort of Barbie girl physics, so you won't see much. There is a slight bit of shading there that gives away a little bit more than just Barbie doll physics. But yeah, that's the district nurse, and it looks like she's already been stabbed in the side, which is interesting. So yeah, it made it into the book at least. Moving on to 277. So 277 has you and the Earl and is that Butler or Franklin's? We have 277 there. Of course you're not in this one, but the Earl and the Butler are. Yeah, that's probably better detailed, but it's a bit more dashing in this one. So, moving on to 291 next. 291, and this is, of course, a vampire. Spoilers if you reach this guy. He is a vampire, it's pretty obvious by his description, black robes, all that stuff. And you don't want to walk straight towards him, that's my tip. Gets in here. This is the original, of course. part of the yellow Druma, sort of that same look, but in the anime, the manga version, manga style is a bit younger looking. Yeah. Next up is 381, or 318. And here we have the, again, straight away, Earl and Franklin's, and you, and a table between you all. So we do have that in the original as well. So you can get there. And of course in the original where it's you facing these two as they're about to try and grab you. But in this version we have you in the shot at the table that they're about to walk around to grab you. So I think there's no getting out of this part of the book either, but do correct me if I'm wrong. May well be. So 3, 4, 5 is next. Okay, so 3, 4, 5. Okay, so can you tell what this is without, if you didn't know what the thing is already? This one is you again, and you are looking through the window into the kitchen right near the beginning of the book, and you see a little bit of the kitchen there, but not a lot. But at the same time, I think this is an improvement in some ways, so let's have a look at the other one, the original, and 2, 4, 5. So it's quite cool, the original. Nice detail in the kitchen, but there's no people in the kitchen, and most of the paragraph is talking about two people walking into the kitchen and talking, and you're overhearing what they're saying. So in a way this one is a little bit better because it's you listening into that conversation rather than an empty kitchen. That's just how I feel anyway. But obviously this one has a much better detail of the actual kitchen, so they both have pros and cons really. Here you are yet again. I haven't mentioned this yet. There's a nice crest that's on the left sleeve and the right sock, sort of a classic anime trope from, if you're going to have a setting in a school, which is quite common, they'll often have a school crest of some kind, and that seems to be the crest of their school, so that's quite cool. I don't know how, I mean the story is still that you're a man going to your job, or job interview, whatever it was, so, no. And, okay, this is 373. Okay, yeah, so this is the Hunchback walking into the room near the beginning, or fairly near the beginning, with a glass of water for you. Pretty cool. And of course we've got you behind the door, which you wouldn't get in the originals. So if we can find that one, 373. This is the Hunchback from the original. The water, but no you. Yeah. That's what we're getting there. Pretty cool. I quite like seeing you in the pictures. That's the main novelty of this set. So 387 next. Super numbers, which I certainly can't. Okay, so 387. Now this one's quite cool. I quite like this one. Let's get the original up. So we're kind of up to the end now anyway. But yeah, there's someone putting on a goat's mask there. And some other people. And there's you again, but you're in a robe. And over here, it's the original. Obviously you're not in it, but these guys are getting their robes on. And I think this is quite cool because the paragraph describes you putting on one of the robes to mingle, to sort of to slink into the background of the crowd that's come in to put in on their robes. And this is before you go off to that sacrifice, if you want to, from a different perspective possibly. And yeah, you're actually in it with your robe on. So yeah, quite cool. Now we come up to the last illustration, and this is spoilers for the ending of the book. Very minor spoilers, because you may well have seen the illustration anyway. But this is paragraph 400 coming up, so just a warning for that. And we will find it in there as well. And here it is. There's the comparison straight away. The original. And this is The House on Fire. And we can see that here. The house on fire. And again we have you. And now this is possibly the second comic book panel style, although it's not very clear. But I'm just thinking that because it looks like you're fading away. You seem to be sort of semi-transparent. And I think that's because it's supposed to be almost a separate panel, but it isn't quite, which is quite strange. Deathtrap Dungeon, the manga version, had a few decent proper comic panels and some chibi versions of the character in a couple of them. This was more basic. This didn't have any of those sort of more interesting aspects, but there you go. There's the Deathtrap Dungeon cover back there. Yet again we have this symbol as evidence that it's similar to the Wizard line, released around the Shield, Wizard Shield editions. And yeah, now let's have a quick look at the colour panels. The front looks like it's you fighting with the Chris knife, which is quite cool. And you have a bit of a wound there. I really like these panels, they're really nice. Same as the Deathtrap Dungeon ones have. Don't get the light off of there at all. And it looks like you at the front door at the beginning. It's really quite cool. And I think my favourite thing of these is this double panel, which we do have a comparison for, and this appears to be the ghost girl that greets you in the corridor and then invites you into this bedroom. They've gone for the bedroom scene, whereas the original, we look it up in 332. Yeah, the original has the ghost girl. In the corridor, and then the next paragraph has you in the bedroom, so see that. Yeah, there's all the ghost girl. Well, that's it for comparison to the book. That's the original. Finally, same as the Deathtrap Dungeon one, we have a character sheet. We have a normal character sheet in there, but we have one with a picture of you on it here. So description in Japanese. This is the only additional wording, I think, to the book. So description. I have no idea what that says. Can't speak Japanese. If you can read that, if anyone can read that to me, that'd be great. And of course, the same again. We have the height and the BWH, which is the bust, waist and hips measurements, which aren't as lewd as they sound. It's more to do with body shape. Almost always gives an idea of an hourglass shape to describe a female shape, basically. Fairly typical female shape, or typical in fictional terms anyway. So yeah, that's House of Hell, the Japanese manga version. There's also Sword of Samurai to come up, and of course we've already looked at Deathtrap Dungeon, so if you haven't seen that, feel free to go and watch that. And yeah, that's the comparison. I actually have the House of Hell Scholastic for this one, and I'm not going to go through in detail, but we can have a flick through and see maybe what the ghost skull there. Okay, so the ghost skull isn't too bad in this, but it's certainly not better than the original. But actually, you know, I don't actually find these that bad. Not that egregious. They're not great, but they're their own thing. So the Scholastic are the latest releases at least in England, in the UK. They've gone for new covers, new internals. They're mostly mockery versions of the originals. Sometimes they come off okay, sometimes they aren't so good. But there you go. So thanks for joining me, and see you again soon.